Welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. We're going to have an exciting one today. Your host, David Washington, on my right, on my right, which is your left, and I'm Joel Hoxley, and I'm on the right side. Okay, so I enough of that fun, introduction, because never back down, everybody, never back down. Listen, that is the name of the Political Action Committee, Federal Political Action Committee, that is so supposedly supporting Ron DeSantis's run for president of the United States. David, what is going on there is a travesty. So I'm going to read this verbatim. Recent media reports paint a picture of turmoil within Never Back Down and political organization backing Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. Allegations of mismanagement, internal leaks, and low polling numbers raise questions about effectiveness of Never Back Down and DeSantis' chances of success. Meanwhile, Trump's gleeful reaction and the emergence of a new super PAC add another layer of intrigue to the Republican primary race. Woo!
Wow. We've talked about the Ron DeSantis campaign ad nauseum, so much to the point that I pretty much personally has said how disappointed I was in how the strategy was executed, how the campaign never really challenged Trump and did not bring any fresh ideas for the electorate. I thought the campaign would bring a very fresh, vibrant challenge to Trump, and it didn't. And now we see why. And just being a political strategist, political innovators, this story was very interesting to me. And this story is based on the Washington Post story about how Never Back Down fell apart. It just the mechanics of how DeSantis wanted to change how political campaigns at that level were run by having his super PAC, Never Back Down, do the bulk of the heavy lifting of campaigning.
Well, it was about the setup, right? So I don't have to tell anybody I'm running because the super PAC's going to raise money to try to support me. So the PC is basically, this is branding, right? Hey, we've got a great conservative brand with Ron DeSantis. What he's doing in Florida is phenomenal. He's a success story. Look, if you don't like Donald Trump, this is your next best solution. And that's how they sold it.
Right.
And they sold it ticking off Donald Trump. They get you see the amount of money they bring in, but I don't think they intended to ever really get DeSantis elected. I really think this was to create an organization that could raise the money, feed some children, feed some political. Just these people. All they have is names, right?
Right.
People seek us out because we're going to do the work. But these are people that sought him out. They then give him all this. Yes, we're going to help you win. We're going to help you win. His focus becomes president. He doesn't focus on his relationship with Donald Trump anymore. Donald Trump turns on him. This was the worst thing to ever happen to the party. And I am not listen, people know I'm not 100% Donald Trump supporter. Listen, I think he has a lot of issues. I would love to have another choice because I don't. It's about age for me.
Okay.
Like he's sharp, but I mean he's definitely sharp when you look at Biden. But listen, this was a play on a product. They took the branding that was being sold by the media. They used that to raise money, and now there's a new super PAC, and I'm guaranteeing you, this super PAC is the money from the same organization, same people saying, we fucked up, we need to get back on Trump's good side. Let's put into the super PAC for Trump.
A little backstory. At one point, I had a political committee. The Voters Coalition of Central Florida is now defunct. ever since we've started working together. However, Joel has experience in political committees. He has one right now called A New Voice, and so Joel has experience and more than I do, um, with political committees at all levels, and so we know what we're talking about here. And for the DeSantis organization to delegate the primary strategy for his campaign to never back down is amazing. And never back down. Famous Floridian strategist Jeff Rowe was key in this particular matter. He wasn't too successful in as far as presidential candidates, Republican presidential candidates. However, he's earned his bread and butter with political campaigns at the federal, I'm sorry, at the state level and at the and to some extent a little bit in the federal level. However, to see so much money raised and to see very little. And granted, we're in Florida, we're not in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or Nevada, but to see such disarray and little to account for the money spent, except for, and I'm looking forward to seeing the success in Iowa, the ground game. They invested heavily in a ground game and a door knocking strategy. So I love to see the outcome of that.
See, I don't think they played into the fact that we only have one woman candidate,
Mm-hmm.
and DeSantis plays against Donald Trump. Nikki Haley doesn't play against either of them.
Mm-hmm.
She plays in her own place. Yep, she has women that are attracted to her because Donald Trump has, been very um, dismissive of the woman's vote as far
Sure.
as they're concerned. Um, his past, which we can get into his past and Florida politics because
Mm-hmm.
that's something we need to talk about um, eventually. But Nikki has a whole lot going for her, and the only person DeSantis is losing to is Nikki. When you think about it, they've all lost to Donald Trump,
Oh
right?
yeah,
So,
it's done.
so whoever's running
Right.
in this is
Right.
just a matter of you know who's going to come out on top, and Nikki has more credentials in the state of South Carolina, and the fact that gone up she's gone up and been the ambassador, the UN ambassador.
Right.
She's got credentials, right? She's got ethnicity. She's got a lot going for her. Ron DeSantis, as good a governor as he is, he's promoted himself. He's got his brand, just like Donald Trump. He's got his brand. But look at the difference. He was in the Navy, and so was Scott, right?
Right.
Scott lives the Navy. He wears his Navy cap. He lives it. He loves it. He came from nowhere. He worked his way, in the military, saved him, brought him to where he is. He would have been in jail. He wouldn't have been successful without the Navy. He loves that story.
Mm-hmm.
Ron DeSantis, wow, you became a JAG attorney. All you have to do is be a JD to be a JAG attorney, right? The fact that you were with the special, you were with the SEALs, that brings a lot. JD is your uh, a lawyer,
Right.
your juris juris doctrine.
Yes, Juris Doctor.
So
And the JAG is
JAG is the lawyers for the military.
okay.
So the judge advocate, uh,
I knew the answer
the
to that.
judge advocate
General.
general. Look, I've been out for a little while, so I use acronyms like BAM. So please, thank you for telling me that. But yeah, it's like I know I love the chaplains in the military, but the chaplains are pastors. They've already had a profession, right? Having a lawyer come into the military is not the same as he went to Annapolis, I believe. So I mean, there's a lot going on, but is he's not living the story. He's not telling
Right.
people why his service was so important. That's the difference between two naval officers that have run the state of Florida. One embraces his military, and the other embraces his political sabe.
And that goes back to the strategy, which it was talked about in the Washington Post article, that there was a difference in opinion in regards to where the strategy should move. And I don't understand. Yes, I do. I do understand, because it seems like in it's personal to DeSantis, because he hasn't moved from this position, and he has become even more nasty in this position on these cultural woke issues. And for the larger electorate, that's not going to play well. You're going to get people who are going to vote for, if DeSantis is the nominee for president, you're going to get people who are going to vote for him because he has the R behind his name. But what about those folks who you want to bring into the party, that you want to attract to the party, that you want to lead a new coalition? And DeSantis and his personal team want to lean so heavy in these cultural issues, which he's losing here in court in Florida on many of those issues, but never back down, wanted to broaden the strategy and talk more about things that really matter, those kitchen table issues, to Iowans, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina. And I'm thinking, is he so suck? He maybe he's too smart for his own good, or too involved in his campaign. I understand that his wife is very involved in
Well,
his campaign.
his wife is very
Maybe
involved.
too involved.
Look, I think where the first lady comes into effect is she understands media. She was in television.
Sure.
She has that, and I think that works well for
But
him.
but that's television.
For him, that works well.
Right.
And I think that they're a wonderful couple, and that's how they work well together.
Mhm.
I love Ron DeSantis, and everything I've just said about him does not mean that I'm giving a negative. I'm trying to say what they've done with the man has been inappropriate. They've not sold him for who he is.
Yes.
They haven't sold his story. And everything I tell people, it's the story.
Yep.
I don't feel the story of Ron DeSantis. I feel the story of his wife and the breast cancer and the things that she's gone through. And that's what makes him. That's what
But
makes
she's
him.
not the
I
candidate.
know, but that's what I'm saying. Her story is it resonates with me. Her story of the relationship makes him a better man for me.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
I want to know who Ron DeSantis is. I want to know who Nikki Haley is. I want to know who Donald Trump is. That's my whole thing. Is nobody's talking. They got two different entities. The difference between a PC in the state of Florida is I can talk to the candidate, I can have conversations, and I can create strategy that that they don't have to approve it. I can send something out without their approval, but I can also get their approval. Whereas in this new federal law separates the 2 and this is an example of true separation. So I'm going to tell you, when this super PAC left and Ron DeSantis became a candidate, they went rogue. They went where they have a plan.
Oh, they do.
They're working on that plan. And that if that plan works out, they wanted to go grassroots. They basically told us what the plan was. But then we saw communication. We should never see communications, because that hurts the candidate. Right into the very first debate.
And now
we're talking about what he's going to do at the debate because we've actually seen it.
And now there is a federal complaint into allegations of inappropriateness between the campaign, the DeSantis campaign, and Never Back Down. And it was bound to happen as the campaign tried to rework how political campaigns at that level are to operate. And again, going back to the story, unfortunately, DeSantis had his story dictated by Trump, by Haley, by Ramaswamy, Christie, by the media. Uh,
Never, never, never let your opponent define you, and they've been defining him the entire
right.
time.
The
That's what you're saying.
boots, the pudding fingers, the nastiness that's betrayed in the media of his attacks on Disney, on his attacks on the LGBTQ community, on his attacks on African Americans, on it's just like, what about the man? Is this
So I'm
he's
gonna,
being defined through his own actions by his opponents and the media, and it's unfortunate for politics in general, and for a campaign that I had hoped to see was going to be a vibrant alternative to Trump, and it's not, and that's why I wrote it
well,
off the day he announced.
well, I've been watching very carefully, and I would say, David, um, a liberal would say attack. I would say position. Okay, I would say his position with Disney, his position, because really, I don't think he's attacking them.
Oh, come on,
I think he's got a
Joel.
position that he's solid on, and he doesn't sway. I'm
Come
not.
on,
Listen, it's a
Joel.
position. His position with Disney is been a losing campaign
Yeah,
because it's a free speech, and when you go against, see, when you go against your conservative principles, it backfires because we want a business to be able to compete with unions.
correct.
So we
Yes, you
saw
do.
unions spending billions of dollars on campaigns and the businesses could not defend themselves. So we literally as conservatives wanted to say, look, how about those employees that aren't part of the union? How about those employees want their company to have a voice? We have that now, right? So companies have political voice.
Yes, they do.
So for Ron DeSantis,
Citizens United.
Ron DeSantis as a lawyer and governor should have realized that even though even though you know Disney disagrees with him, that's political speech. And we defended political speech for companies.
You
Now
would
it's
think.
backfiring.
You
This is
would
affirmative
think.
action. Affirmative action. At some point, affirmative action, as good as its intentions are supposed to be, is going to catch up. And all of a sudden, somebody's going to tweak it, right? Because it can't serve everybody. It's going to then be for individuals. This is why I'm a conservative. Like, if you're going to be conservative and you want to do conservative things, you got to stay in the right lane. Because once you go outside the lane and you tell a business what to do as a government agency, guess what? You've walked outside your conservative values.
Right. I thought conservatives believed in small government. And like you said, companies have political speech. And to deny Disney and whoever else political speech, that's not conservative.
And
That's not a tenet of conservatism.
and we start to talk hypocrisy, right?
Correct. Ooh,
So we talk a lot about it because there's a lot of things that are conflicting with this changing Republican Party. And that's, I say changing Republican Party because look, tariffs are a tax and we're against taxes, but yet we have a president that loved tariffs, wrapped it around America first, and now we call ourselves America first, Republicans. We call a Republican, America first, and we put tariffs as part of the, you know, help us do this, and yet it hurt our jobs, our jobs.
yes, it
Look,
did.
I can defend conservative causes. I can go against certain policies, but I'm still a conservative, and I want conservatives to remember where we come from.
DeSantis lost donors because of his many stances in regards to abortion, in regards to um, speech, political speech for companies. And he has been steadfast in those positions regardless. Is there a strategy? is there a strategy that goes beyond running for office? Is he looking at life when he's not an elected? As a conservative pundit on the speaking circuit, in front of TV shows, a book deal, or something like that,
No,
because
that was Matt Gates.
it doesn't, because it doesn't, as a political innovator, as someone in this space, it just doesn't make sense why DeSantis is going down this path and seeing so many high level individuals leave his campaign, but more importantly, his never back down, when that was probably his best vehicle to move forward. He lost the endorsement of the Koch brothers to Nikki Haley and what
Well,
they could bring.
you know,
It just I
Coke.
just didn't what did I say? I
You
said
said
Koch.
brothers.
Well, yeah, I know.
I'm
It's still
sorry.
their
Yeah,
organization. I
rest in
know.
peace. Rest in peace. It's still
Exactly.
the Coke
Right.
organization.
Right. The Coke
Right.
organization.
I'm with
Thank you.
you. I
Thank
just
you.
wanted
Thank
to
you.
kind
Thank
of,
you. Thank you. The Coke organization.
you know, when we start talking, when we stop talking about George Soros.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. David and I have an inside thing. Yeah.
It's just that they're bleeding donors. They're bleeding support. They're likely to bleed voters in Iowa. I just don't understand why the DeSantis campaign, DeSantis in particular, is continuing in this lane when it's looking more and more likely that second place is slipping out of his
So has anybody ever looked?
his sights.
So has anybody ever looked at Ron DeSantis, Congressman Ron DeSantis?
Oh, the Tea Party
So
congressman.
when you look at Ron DeSantis as a congressman, he was this new, you know, hey, I'm going to be a really good congressman because I'm going to be well known because I'm going to be on, I'll never not take a television appearance. I'm going to be on CNN. I'm going to be on all these different, broadcasts. And, for congressmen that you see constantly on television, how much is he doing in Congress and for constituent services, right?
Right.
I know that I didn't see a lot of uh, Congressman Micah, old school, of course, but on television, I saw him working a schedule of, okay, what Rotary clubs do I have to go to? What parades do I get? How many parades can I get into on, St. Patrick's Day? How many parades can I get into for the Christmas? How much can I be seen in my district? I can go to a restaurant in Castleberry or in Seminole County, and it'd be a mom and pop place, and all of a sudden, it listen, he just walks in.
Mhm.
He still to this day, he still
still
walks in,
walking,
and
yeah.
people like, is that real? Yeah, is that Pat and John?
Yeah.
That's the difference between Congress, the congressmen that those two people were. So the television, the media made him, and the media will break you.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to kind of point out here is the media wanted somebody that they could use against Donald Trump,
Okay.
and they could change the narrative because they believed that they truly put Donald Trump into office because they couldn't resist the stories that he would create. Now, how do we break that? Okay, well, let's make it a competition, right? Let's get into both their egos. Let's get into Donald Trump's ego, then he'll turn on DeSantis, then DeSantis will have to be his own man, and then that would create the separation. Media manipulation, and I'm not saying that it's like a conspiracy theory. I'm saying watch the media. They say the same exact thing.
Yeah.
It's like Reuters. It's like Reuters.
Right.
Hey, guess what? I don't have to write a story because there's an organization that writes 90% of our stories out there. But my last word is, this is a branding issue. And once you have a branding issue, unless you have a solid brand, you can't come back. And unfortunately, this pack is falling apart because they can't figure out who they're supporting.
That's a good point. My final word on this is that I'm greatly disappointed in the campaign. I'm disappointed in the strategy. Um, it's a disservice. The campaign, the DeSantis campaign, it's a disservice to the American people. And what it was a service to is highlighting the bitterness of this campaign and the issues that they espouse and the divisiveness that they espouse. And it's unfortunate because the Republican Party has an opportunity. And I'm a Democrat, I'm a liberal. However, I see opportunity when I see it. And Republicans, conservatives have an opportunity to grow, to bring in the Colin Powells, the Condoleezza Rices, you know, but they're failing. Florida politics, Florida Republicans, they're mired in a lot of scandal right now. And their leader at the top, Ron DeSantis, is failing them. And we could go into, and we will, and I have, and we'll continue to go into the Florida politics. However, I'm as a political professional, as political innovators, and doing what we do and seeing what we see. I'm just disappointed that America did not have an opportunity to see a strong alternative to MAGA, to Donald Trump.
Well, all I can say at this point is like, share, subscribe. Most important thing you can do is have a voice. And you have a voice here by your comments, and we will always respond. So, listen, happy holidays. And hey, if you're a Republican, pay attention.
Merry Christmas.